good afternoon. So many more of you now, so welcome. My name is Jamie Wigner, and today I'm sharing with you the Little Daisy Resort and its transformation from housing tired miners to hopeful brides and grooms. So before I get started, I do have a few questions for you guys. So by show of hands, who has been to Jerome, Arizona? Okay, awesome. And then how many of you are interested in history? So architecture, design, just history in general. Perfect. And then how many of you are married, plan to get married, or have at least been to a wedding? Perfect, so luckily we're all in the right place. The Little Daisy Hotel has a 100-year history as of this year. So even though our journey today will be brief, it is quite extensive. It did start in September of 1919. Originally, even though it is as big and gorgeous as it is now, originally it did just serve the simple purpose of housing miners after a long day of work there in Jerome. That went on till about 1953 when it was sold for the first time to William Bell. And after that, it's not quite clear what Bell did with the hotel for the next 40 years or so, because it did just sit empty for a while and eventually began to deteriorate with even the roof collapsing. That brings us to 1995 when the current owner, Lisa Aker, and her late husband purchased the hotel, which was then pretty much just an empty concrete shell. They purchased it for less than $200,000 and began renovations to make it into their current residence. And that brings us up to this fall, 2018. The Little Daisy Hotel was put on the market for a whopping $6.2 million. It is still for sale right now. And looking at that, then in January of 2019 is the next step on our timeline. That is when I was sitting here thinking about what I would do for my capstone. I knew I wanted to do a historical building no matter what, and originally I was looking at one in Chicago where I used to live. Actually, the runner-up to Little Daisy was this 12,000 square foot building in Quebec. That was a city hall type place with a prison in the basement, but not quite the right fit for what I was going for. So eventually, as my dad and I are actually doing some research together, he said, well, why don't you do the Little Daisy? Because when I had first seen that building in Jerome after my numerous visits, I just really fell in love with it. And that was just perfect. It all started to fall into place. And then after that, I do want to mention that how incredibly crazy it was to get the blueprints. That is definitely a significant part of this journey and this project, because that is when I realized how passionate I actually would be about it. I ended up calling everyone in the city of Jerome to see how I could access these blueprints, and I will fast forward to say that I was not able to ever get them in my own hands. But what I did end up doing was spending about 2.5 hours in this little back office of the state park, the Douglas Mansion, and sketching and getting all the measurements that I could in order to bring the design solution to my design problem. And then finally, we finish our 100-year history with today showing you guys this solution. And so this, of course, took a lot of exploration of sketching different concept ideas, and what I finally landed on was adventurous, breathtaking, and inspiring for the Little Daisy Hotel. These are 3 big words. These are 3 all-encompassing words, but they perfectly represent the feelings that someone would walk away from this hotel with. And the whole point of what we want to do with this is make it a wedding venue. And it is an all-inclusive wedding venue, which is why these ideas are so broad, is because this in itself is so broad. And what I mean by all-inclusive, what I kind of coined since the beginning, was that you can hold all facets of a wedding in this hotel. When it is not being used for a wedding, it will still serve as a hotel, which is actually what the current owner would like to see it happen as once it is sold. And even then, it can still be used for other events as well. So it definitely is versatile, which goes in with the history of it as well. And again, these feelings, the idea, the versatility, that's all great and good, but I needed to know where to get started. And so the first question I asked myself was that the problem I was looking at was historical preservation and historic integrity, and how to maintain that, because I'd never done anything like that before. So I started asking how well historical preservation and sustainability could work together, because that is the second big problem that I wanted to look at, because it is a real-life world problem on our planet today. And the answer to that, how well do they work together, is quite beautifully, because using a historic building is sustainable. That's just the fact of the matter. And that is the biggest thing that I learned here. And then looking at the sustainability factor of it, I wanted to know how I can make that work while also hosting large-scale events and weddings. And a lot of couples out there are interested in green weddings. It's not just a trend. It's something that really is going to change the industry for design and events. And there's multiple ways that you can host a green wedding as well. And then the last question I wanted to ask was how I could have a worthwhile impact on these two industries of design and events. And can this concept be branded? Is it unique enough? Can it really make a change? And so after all of that, I want to show you what this came to and what my solution began to look like. So the first images that you'll see here are actually going to be what the building looked like in 1919, so according to those blueprints that I was able to eventually see. And then we'll look at what it looks like now. So looking at the first floor of what the Little Daisy used to look like, we do just have some basic areas because again, this was just housing miners. It wasn't anything really luxurious, even though it is so big and grand. And so over here on this side, we had like the dining and the kitchen. And then on the other side of the building was a grand hall, a billiard room, and a back porch. So there was definitely some areas for the miners to kind of enjoy their time. But looking at it now, we have actually kind of flipped those things around. So on the left-hand side of the building there, you do see the dining and the bar, which is one of the main places where you'd be able to hold a wedding ceremony or a reception. Yeah. And then the ballroom right here, which is where these other tables are set up. I actually wanted to show different setups for different types of events to show the versatility of this building. So that one is set up for more of like a corporate event with like a speaker and whatnot. So that is just the kind of idea here is that versatility and inclusivity. And then looking at the second floor, there was originally 21 rooms on this floor for the miners. The layout was actually a little wonky. It didn't really make sense. There were these 10 rooms on the left wing over here with a hallway in the middle, which led to a main public space and a public bathroom, as well as the stairwell. And then the whole second wing has rooms with corridors on either side. So definitely not the best flow, especially for what we're looking at now with a more luxurious and intimate venue. And so this is the solution that I came up with here. So we have 6 guest rooms on the second floor, a bridal suite, a dressing room, a gathering room, and a children's room, because research does show that children do need a place to go during events to keep them occupied. And then the third level on the rooftop, this is actually where a lot of the sustainability factors come into play. And that is what this is looking like now. We have a lawn, which is the third main place that you'd be able to hold a ceremony and reception. So again, there's a lot of different choices that can happen here. And then the sustainability factors that I mentioned, and I will definitely go into in a bit here. So looking at the historic elements and the integrity, let's take a look at the claim for that in the Little Daisy. So looking at the guest rooms on the second level, this is an example of what a guest room would look like. I wanted to keep that historic integrity with the concrete flooring that's actually throughout the space, kind of a strange color, but definitely keeping that there, as well as the ceilings are made of recycled tin. So everything you see throughout this space is either from a company that is sustainable or does use recycled products or has antique products. For example, the lighting throughout the building is from this company, Urban Remains, and they go into old buildings primarily in the city of Chicago and recycle and repurpose those products. And again, a hotel room in the 1920s wouldn't have had too much going on, wouldn't have been too busy. And it would have had mostly these same pieces of furniture, so a bed, nightstands, a dresser, writing desk, and chair. So really making it feel like you're walking into what it would have looked like then, even having detailing down to little Art Deco style pieces. And each guest room also features a spacious bathroom that meets ADA standards and has historic detailing even down to the bathroom tiling. And that historic integrity can also be seen in the dining room. Again, we cut those floors in there as well as the coffered ceilings. The bar does have that Art Deco style as well. And the lighting, again, is from that same company, bringing in both history and sustainability so that those can continue to work well together. And then this space is set up for a reception example. The space is more intimate and luxurious, as I mentioned before, so it's not going to fit bridal or wedding party is much bigger than about 100 people or so, but this is set up with 8 tables of like 8 tops. So that gives a good idea of making it a little more intimate and how many people you can fit in there as well. And I also want to point out the 6-foot wide arched windows that line the corridors of the Little Daisy. They do provide endless views and copious amounts of daylight. And then the sustainability factors that I mentioned on the rooftop. So let's look at that. So over here on the north side of the building, this perspective shows in more detail the floral and vegetable gardens that are on site. This will allow on-site products to be used rather than outsourcing and using transportation, which even that, as simplistic as it sounds, is really a huge thing because it immediately begins decreasing the amount of carbon, I can't think of the word right now, but carbon emissions that are released by this venue that they're responsible for. And again, with the green weddings, there are so many things that you can do. It really is infinite. So even down to the smallest things like using leaves as confetti, using recycled paper for invitations, and going with the history of it as well, using things like vintage dinnerware and vintage silverware and whatnot for your wedding. And then the rooftop is more than just sustainability, of course. So again, I want to look at the lawn. That is probably going to be the primary spot for ceremonies and receptions to be held, as well as other events, of course, as well. The image on the left shows a wedding set up under and inside a 40 by 20 tent, which is a possibility here that I wanted to look into just in case of weather or other things going on in Jerome. Luckily, Jerome is a more ideal place for outdoor weddings as it does not drop as low in temperatures as other northern Arizona towns like Flagstaff. But just in case you do have a couple that does want to have a wedding inside but still outside, or if there's a surprise summer monsoon storm or a rare snowstorm, anything like that, just want to, again, provide that versatility. And then over here on the right is just the same wedding setup but without a tent, which really shows the amount of space that there is for guest seating. There's a dance floor as well as other wedding elements. And then to kind of show this the same way that we began, are you ready for a breathtaking and inspiring adventure? Because that is the feeling that's going to happen here. And that's a lot of based on the location of this hotel in northern Arizona, because northern Arizona is breathtaking in of itself. But then the events that the Little Daisy puts on will inspire adventure, especially because we're looking at the future of a couple taking off on their new life together. And then do you have an appreciation for history and architecture? That's what the Little Daisy is. When you stand there, if you guys that have been to Jerome and see the Little Daisy, I mean, it is just gigantic and it really is just grand. So appreciating that, and there really is a higher demand for historic buildings being used for new projects right now, and it really is just the more sustainable choice. So throughout this project, that's one of the biggest things I learned is that history is so important and to actually use that to our advantage. And then also looking at, are you one among the many of us that is looking for a paradigm shift on our planet? Sustainability is so key to what we do right now and really does affect the industry. And again, there are so many ways to do it that we don't really realize, even just utilizing that building. And so to leave you all with this, it takes energy to conserve a new building. It saves energy to use an old one. It can also save time, can save money, can create beauty and create hope. And as cheesy as that is, this is what this is all about, because we are the future, and the Little Daisy perfectly represents looking towards the future in multiple ways while also remembering